What if I told you that the company behind Peterbilt, one of the biggest truck names on the planet, was actually born from the ashes of a forgotten brand most people have never even heard of? Or that the man who founded Oldsmobile also built a truck so legendary that a rock band named themselves after it? These are not fairy tales. These are real truck brands that changed the world and then vanished. Here are 10 forgotten truck brands that deserved so much better. Number 10. Corbitt. Let us start our journey in a small tobacco town in North Carolina, because that is where one of America's most underrated truck stories began. Richard J. Corbitt was born in Enfield, North Carolina in 1873. He moved to Henderson, North Carolina in 1895 and started out as a tobacco merchant. But Corbitt was a shrewd businessman, and he quickly realized that the big tobacco companies would swallow small dealers like him whole. So in 1899, he made a bold move. He started the Corbitt Buggy Company, building horse-drawn buggies to haul agricultural products. By 1907, Corbitt saw the future, and the future had an engine. He built his first automobile, a motorized buggy that became the first commercially produced automobile in the entire state of North Carolina. But here is the thing, he lost money on every single car he sold. So in 1910, Corbitt built his first truck, a 1.5-ton model with a chain drive, and suddenly the money started rolling in. By 1913, Corbitt quit making cars entirely and went all in on trucks. It was one of the smartest decisions he ever made. The Corbitt Motor Truck Company became a powerhouse in the American South. In 1917, the company delivered North Carolina's first motorized school buses to the Pamlico County school system. During World War I, Corbitt supplied trucks to the United States Army and Navy, but Corbitt could never compete with the mass production machines in Detroit. When Richard Corbitt retired in 1952 at the age of 76, the company lost its driving force. The factory was sold to the United Industrial Syndicate, a New York-based firm, which gradually liquidated the company. The last Corbitt trucks rolled off the line around 1954, a truck brand that built North Carolina's first automobile, its first school buses, and supplied the military through 2 world wars, gone just like that. Number 9. Divco. If you grew up in mid-20th century America, chances are a Divco truck visited your neighborhood every single week. You just might not remember its name. Divco stands for Detroit Industrial Vehicle Company. The story begins in 1922 when George Bacon, the chief engineer at the Detroit Electric Vehicle Company, designed a remarkable new milk delivery truck. This truck could be driven from 4 different positions: the front seat, the back, or either running board. It was revolutionary for multi-stop deliveries, but Bacon's employer wanted nothing to do with gasoline engines. So Bacon and a group of investors left and formed the Detroit Industrial Vehicle Company in 1926. The trucks Divco produced were unlike anything else on American roads. They featured a distinctive snub-nosed design with a rounded front end, and the driver could operate the vehicle while standing up. The throttle and brake were mounted on the steering column for stand-up driving. This was engineered specifically so milkmen, bread delivery men, and laundry workers could hop on and off hundreds of times a day without exhaustion. In 1937, Divco was completely redesigned with a welded all-steel van body and that iconic snub nose that would remain virtually unchanged for the next 5 decades. A massive new factory was built on Hoover Road near Detroit in 1939. By 1940, Divco introduced America's first insulated and refrigerated delivery truck. After World War II, annual Divco production zoomed to 7,000 units. In 1957, Divco purchased Wayne Works, a school bus builder in Richmond, Indiana, and the combined company became Divco Wayne Corporation. But the world changed. Supermarkets replaced home delivery. Refrigerators got bigger. The milkman became a memory. Divco went through a dizzying series of corporate changes and ownership transfers. The company moved from Detroit to Delaware, Ohio, and production staggered along under different parent companies. From 1926 until 1986, 60 years, Divco produced multi-stop delivery trucks. Only the Volkswagen Beetle stayed in production with the same basic design for a longer period. When production finally ceased in January 1986, an entire era of American daily life went with it. Number 8. FWD. Four-wheel drive auto company. Every single four-wheel drive vehicle on the road today owes a debt to a small machine shop in Clintonville, Wisconsin. And almost nobody knows about it. In 1908, two brothers-in-law, Otto Zacko, a blacksmith, and William Besedick, a machinist, built and patented the world's first successful four-wheel drive vehicle in their shop. They called it the Battleship. The concept used a ball and socket design that allowed power to be transferred to a steering axle, driving all four wheels simultaneously. In 1909, they founded the Badger Four-Wheel Drive Auto Company in Clintonville. The word Badger was dropped in 1910, and it became simply the Four-Wheel Drive Auto Company. FWD even had a standing reward of $1,000 for anyone who could beat one of their vehicles on an obstacle course. Nobody ever claimed it. A 1912 United States Army test of trucks as replacements for mules and wagons gave FWD its first major publicity. But it was World War I that transformed the company. The British Army became FWD's first military customer on March 23, 1915, ordering 50 trucks to be delivered in just 40 days. By the end of 1915, FWD was building and shipping 400 trucks and had Allied government orders for 200 more each month. During the entire World War I era, FWD produced between 24,000 and 32,000 Model B trucks for 6 different countries. After the war, FWD expanded into highway building equipment, earth-moving machinery, and fire trucks. World War II brought another surge of military contracts. The company's trucks saw service across every theater of the war. In 1958, the company changed its name to FWD Corporation. In 1963, FWD acquired Seagrave Fire Apparatus and moved it to Clintonville. But the company's commercial truck business gradually declined. FWD and its associates were sold in 2003 to an investment group. The company that literally invented four-wheel drive, a technology now used by hundreds of millions of vehicles worldwide, faded into near obscurity in the very town where it all started. Number 7. Marmon-Herrington. The Marmon name carries a level of prestige that most people have completely forgotten. A Marmon car, the Marmon Wasp, won the very first Indianapolis 500 race in 1911, and the Marmon 16 sedan was considered the height of luxury in its era. But the Great Depression crushed the luxury car market. So, in 1931, Walter C. Marmon, from the family behind the Marmon Motor Car Company, partnered with Colonel Arthur W. Harrington, a former United States Army engineer with deep expertise in all-wheel drive vehicle design. Together, they founded the Marmon-Herrington Company in Indianapolis, Indiana. Marmon-Herrington got off to a fast start by winning contracts for military aircraft refueling trucks, 4x4 chassis for towing light weaponry, and a major order from the Iraqi Pipeline Company for what were reportedly the largest trucks ever built at that time. In 1935, the company began what it became most famous for, converting Ford 1.5-ton V8 trucks to all-wheel drive. These Marmon-Herrington Ford conversions became extremely popular and gave thousands of buyers access to affordable four-wheel drive capability. During World War II, the company produced trucks, armored vehicles, half-tracks, and light tanks for the United States and its allies. At its peak during the war, Marmon-Herrington employed 1,500 workers. Their vehicles proved especially effective in desert warfare across North Africa. After the war, the company branched into multi-stop delivery vans, transit buses, and trolley buses. Between 1946 and 1959, Marmon-Herrington produced approximately 1,624 trolley buses that served cities across North America, including Chicago and San Francisco, where some remained in service until 1976. But by the early 1960s, the market for new trolley buses had dried up. The Pritzker family purchased the company and gradually shifted its focus away from full vehicle manufacturing. Indianapolis production ended in 1963, when operations moved to Denton, Texas. Today, Marmon-Herrington still exists, owned by Berkshire Hathaway, but only as a manufacturer of axles and transfer cases. The truck brand that once built vehicles for armies and cities alike is now just a component supplier, a ghost of what it used to be. Number 6. Brockway. In the small city of Cortland, New York, there was once a truck company so respected that Overdrive magazine called its products the most rugged trucks in the world. Many of those trucks are still working as daily production vehicles today, nearly 50 years after the company closed its doors. It all started in 1875 when William Brockway founded the Brockway Carriage Works in Homer, New York. His son, George Brockway, saw the potential in motorized vehicles and began building trucks around 1909. By 1912, the newly incorporated Brockway Motor Truck Company moved to a factory in Cortland and started turning out their first models. The very first Brockway was a Model A, built for the Miller Corset Company of Cortland. During World War I, Brockway built 587 Class B Liberty trucks for the United States military. After the war, the company produced a full range of trucks from 1-ton to 5-ton capacities. In 1928, Brockway expanded by purchasing the Indiana Truck Corporation based in Marion, Indiana. Brockway trucks were hand-built, custom heavy-duty machines. Their hood ornament was a husky dog in a pulling harness, which gave Cortland the proud nickname of Husky Town, USA. The company developed a fierce reputation for building trucks that would outlast just about anything else on the road. But in 1956, Mack Trucks acquired Brockway. For a while, Brockway continued to operate with a degree of independence, building its rugged custom trucks alongside Mack's product line. However, the parent company eventually decided that maintaining a separate brand was not worth the investment. In 1977, Brockway Motor Company closed for good. The closure devastated the Cortland community. In the 1978 film Convoy, a white 1972 Brockway 361 tractor appears, and in an unplanned scene, the loaded trailer topples while making a sharp turn. The Brockway ends up abandoned on its side while the hero drives away in a Mack. It was an accidental but fitting metaphor for what had just happened in real life. Today, there is still an annual Brockway Truck Show in Cortland, organized by the Brockway Truck Preservation Association, and the Brockway Museum at the Central New York Living History Center preserves their legacy. Number 5. White Motor Company. The White Motor Company was not some small-time operation. At its peak, White was the #1 maker of trucks and custom vehicles in the United States. Its story begins not with engines, but with sewing machines. In 1876, Thomas H. White founded the White Sewing Machine Company in Cleveland, Ohio. His son Rollin Henry White invented the auto flash boiler in 1899, and together with brothers Windsor and Walter, the family began building steam-powered automobiles and trucks in 1900. The White Steamer became one of the best-selling automobiles in America, outselling its nearest competitor 2-to-1. But Thomas White dismissed the importance of the automobile, so his sons organized the White Motor Car Company in 1906 as a separate venture. By 1909, the company was producing vehicles under its own name. During World War I, White shifted entirely to trucks and never looked back. After the war, White became the undisputed leader in the American truck industry. Over the decades, White grew through a series of ambitious acquisitions. The company absorbed Autocar, Sterling, Diamond T, and REO. It controlled an empire of American truck brands. White trucks served in both world wars and were a common sight on every major highway in the country. But empire building came at a cost. White took on enormous debt to finance its acquisitions. In the 1970s, mismanagement combined with inflation, recession, and sweeping industry changes brought the company to its knees. White sold off assets including the profitable Euclid Hauler operation, moved its headquarters out of downtown Cleveland, and slashed employment. In September 1980, White Motor Corporation filed for bankruptcy. By August 1981, Sweden's AB Volvo purchased all of White's truck-producing plants. The White Motor Corporation officially ceased to exist in 1985. Volvo kept the White name on some trucks for a number of years before finally retiring it. The brand that once sat at the very top of America's trucking industry, gone. Number 4. Fageol. This is one of the most remarkable origin stories in all of trucking, because the company that died gave birth to one of the biggest truck names in the world, Peterbilt. The Fageol Motors Company was founded in 1916 by the Fageol brothers, William, Frank, Raleigh, and Claude, in Oakland, California. They were incredibly creative innovators. Before trucks, they had been contracted to solve a transportation problem at the 1915 Panama Pacific Exposition in San Francisco, which covered over 600 acres. Fageol quickly became known for building high-quality, heavy-duty trucks with dual-range mid-mounted transmissions. These trucks were capable of slow-speed heavy hauling and highway speeds with lighter loads, a groundbreaking feature for the era. The company also produced farm tractors and buses. Their 1921 safety bus was the first bus ever designed and built from the ground up, not just a body slapped onto a truck chassis. In 1934, Fageol built 10 trucks for Consolidated Truck Lines that were the first all-aluminum trucks in the industry. In 1937, Fageol introduced a new style of aerodynamic highway tractor that was ahead of its time, but financial troubles plagued the company. The Fageol brothers left in 1927 to start the Twin Coach Company in Kent, Ohio. Without its founders, Fageol went into receivership in 1932. The company was reorganized as Fageol Truck and Coach and operated by the Waukesha Motor Company and the Central Bank of Oakland. In 1938, a lumberman from Tacoma, Washington, named T.A. Peterman, bought the Fageol factory. In 1939, he paid $50,000 for the 13.5-acre Fageol plant in Oakland, its tooling and parts inventory. By the end of that year, the newly founded Peterbilt Motors Company had produced 16 vehicles. Fageol died. But from its factory, its tools, its designs, and its DNA, Peterbilt was born. Today, Peterbilt is one of the most iconic truck brands on earth. But almost nobody remembers the company that made it all possible. Number 3. Diamond T. If you want to know just how good Diamond T trucks were, here is a single fact. They were called the Cadillac of trucks, and they earned that title 48 years before the Cadillac Escalade was even a concept. The Diamond T Motor Car Company was founded in Chicago, Illinois, in 1905 by C.A. Tilt. The company name came from Tilt's father, who was a successful shoemaker. The senior Tilt had a logo featuring a big T framed by a diamond. The diamond symbolized quality. The company's hood emblem was a sled dog in harness. Diamond T initially manufactured touring cars, but by 1911, after a Michigan plumbing business requested a truck version of one of their cars, Tilt realized commercial vehicles were the future. That decision changed everything. Before World War I, there were Diamond T dealers across the United States and in export markets around the world. During World War II, Diamond T proved itself on the global stage. The company produced the Diamond T 980 and 981, a heavy prime mover quickly adopted by the British Purchasing Commission as a tank transporter tractor. These massive machines hauled tanks across the battlefields of Europe and North Africa. Diamond T also produced over 30,000 of their 4-ton 6x6 trucks for the United States Army. After the war, Diamond T continued producing high-quality pickups and heavy trucks. The Model 201 pickup was produced from 1938 to 1949, powered by Hercules 6-cylinder engines. But in 1958, Diamond T was acquired by the White Motor Corporation, which moved production from Chicago to REO's facility in Lansing, Michigan. By 1967, as a subsidiary of White, Diamond T was merged with the REO Motor Company to form Diamond Rio Trucks. The Diamond T name was gone, absorbed into a corporate consolidation that erased one of the most beloved truck brands in American history. Number 2. Rio. The story of Rio is one of the most bittersweet tales in automotive history because its founder created 2 iconic brands and lost both. Ransom Eli Olds was born on June 3, 1864, in Geneva, Ohio. In 1897, he founded the Olds Motor Vehicle Company, which became Oldsmobile. The company's curved dash Oldsmobile was one of the first affordable, mass-produced automobiles in the world. But disagreements with his partners forced Olds out of his own company. So on August 16, 1904, Olds founded a brand new company in Lansing, Michigan. Since he could not use his last name, it still belonged to General Motors. He used his initials instead. The company was called the REO Motor Car Company. REO sold 2,458 cars in its first full year, 1906 beating Oldsmobile's 1,600 units that same year. By 1910, a separate REO Motor Truck Company was formed as a subsidiary. 5 years later, in 1915, REO introduced its greatest creation, the Speedwagon. The REO Speedwagon was a light-duty truck that revolutionized the market. It was fast, reliable, and incredibly versatile. The Speedwagon was manufactured in pickup, panel truck, bus, delivery, dump, fire truck, hearse, and ambulance configurations. Production continued through at least 1953. The Speedwagon became so famous that decades later, in the 1970s, a rock band adopted the name REO Speedwagon, a cultural footnote that kept Ransom Olds' legacy alive in the most unexpected way. But the Great Depression devastated REO's car business. Automotive production ended in 1936. Ransom Olds resigned from the board and sold his remaining stock. The company reorganized in 1938 as REO Motors and focused solely on trucks. World War II military contracts provided a lifeline, but once those contracts ended, losses returned. In 1967, REO was merged with Diamond T to form Diamond REO Trucks under the White Motor Corporation umbrella. Diamond REO went bankrupt in 1975. The man who created Oldsmobile and REO, two brands that shaped American motoring, watched them both slip away from his control during his lifetime. Ransom Olds died in 1950. His company survived him by just 17 years. Number 1. Studebaker. The number 1 spot on this list goes to a name that stretches further back in American history than almost any other vehicle maker. Studebaker is not just a forgotten truck brand. It is a forgotten American institution. The Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company was founded in 1852 in South Bend, Indiana. That is 11 years before the Civil War ended. The company started as a blacksmith shop building wagons. Studebaker wagons carried settlers across the frontier. They supplied the Union Army during the Civil War. They were the transportation backbone of a growing nation. In the early 1900s, Studebaker transitioned to automobiles. First electric, then gasoline-powered. The company began building trucks with its earliest gasoline delivery cars around 1902, making it one of the oldest truck manufacturers in the country. In February 1952, Studebaker celebrated the milestone of producing trucks for 50 years. Studebaker's first light-duty pickup arrived for the 1937 model year. It shared the Dictator sedan's chassis and 6-cylinder engine with a 6-foot box in the back. It was a beautiful truck, but at $647, it was pricey compared to Chevrolet's $515 and Ford's $526. During World War II, Studebaker built the US 6 Series, 2.5 to 5-ton 6x4 cargo trucks produced from 1942 to 1945. These trucks served across every theater of the war and were supplied in enormous numbers to the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease program. Soviet soldiers came to depend on Studebaker trucks so heavily that some reports say the Russian word for truck in certain dialects became a nickname derived from Studebaker. After the war, Studebaker introduced the 2R truck series in 1949, engineered by Russell Mackenzie and built at their plant in South Bend. These trucks were well designed and well received. The E-Series followed in 1955, and in 1960, Studebaker launched the Champ, its last pickup truck. Starting in 1961, the Champ offered a wider space-side box using tooling acquired from Dodge. But Studebaker was in dire financial straits throughout the late 1950s and invested virtually nothing to update its truck line. On December 9, 1963, Studebaker closed its South Bend plant, ending all U.S. production. The last Champ truck was built 7 days later. On December 27, 1963, Canadian production at the Hamilton, Ontario plant continued until March 17, 1966, when Studebaker closed forever. Think about that. A company that was building wagons before Abraham Lincoln was president. A company that supplied the Union Army carried settlers west, built trucks for 2 world wars, and produced vehicles for over 110 years. Gone. Just gone. If you learned something new, drop a like on this video. If you want more stories about the trucks, cars, and machines that history forgot, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. I will see you in the next one.